This comes from the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, July of this year, just a couple months ago. It says a recent study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that only 6.8%, about 7% of the adults in the United States have optimal metabolic health. Nearly 9 of 10 have some metabolic issue, whether it's high cholesterol, triglycerides, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, or just excess belly fat. I mean, that's an amazing statistic, I think.
Yep.
And so we're going to talk about, some of the things that we can do about that this evening. So if you just look at whole foods, okay? We all got to eat, okay? Everybody has to eat. So the choices that we make really matter. So we look at, so if we're going to call something a whole food, what would you say that is? What's a whole food?
A food that's raw, that hasn't been processed.
Yeah, like a piece of
An apple.
cauliflower, an apple, a piece of broccoli.
Potato.
Yeah, potato, right. A potato chip is not a whole food.
No.
So
No.
So an onion, that's whole food, okay? And even like, let's take, a piece of chicken, that's a whole food.
Mm-hmm.
Liver from a cow would be whole food. So if we look at history, if we look at the history of vitamins, whole foods contain nutrients that we need. As far as 1500 BC, goose liver was used to cure night blindness in ancient Greece, Rome, and Arabia. Now, that's not something I eat very much, at all, actually. But they figured it out back then. James Lind, and he's very famous, found that fresh fruits and vegetables cured scurvy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the mid-1700s. In 1893, a Dutch physician named Eichmann was able to produce paralysis in chickens by feeding them polished rice. The disease was very, very similar to that suffered by humans in Asia.
What's polished rice?
Polished rice,
Mm-hmm.
it's rice without any of the nutrients. It's just the carbohydrate, basically.
Okay.
So there's no nutrition at all. It's just starch. Okay. In 1912, there's a biochemist by the name of Hopkins fed animals a refined diet. The animals were unable to reproduce, became ill, and died. Animals fed an unprocessed, unrefined, natural diet thrived. Vitamins were discovered about that same time. So if you look, if you ever watch like the wildlife shows, I mean, you probably watched them.
Mm-hmm.
You never see them cooking their food. They all eat raw food all the time, and they don't. The biggest problem that wild animals have is other animals, really, and people, but they don't get cancer, or heart disease, or PMS, or ovarian, cancer, or they don't have those issues. Okay. So let's look at vitamins. Vitamins are extremely complex substances. You don't need a lot of them, okay? They're really important for all life. And when you get vitamins from your food, they're interlaced with your food. In other words, when you eat a food, the vitamins aren't separated out, okay? That's really an important thing that we're going to look at here in a minute. So there's a couple of interesting studies. In 1991, there was a study that showed 90% of people are deficient in chromium. It's probably why we have so much blood sugar issue today. 80% in B6, which would, that translates to like depression and some other problems. 75% in magnesium, 68% in calcium, 57% in iron, and 50% in vitamin A. That was in 91. In the mid-1960s, a study of hospital patients shows that just marginal vitamin deficiencies can alter the immune system and altered disease course and therapeutic response. Just small deficiencies can cause that. Foods that have vital parts removed, if you eat processed food, basically this is saying, you can't take a Centrum and make up for it. You cannot do it. Well, have you ever seen a Centrum commercial?
Mm-hmm.
Does it look like on those commercials that you take this pill and everything's going to be okay? You know, this is not true. That's a lie. You cannot you can't take a synthetic nutrient like Centrum or One A Day and make up for eating processed food. In fact, I would say this. You can't even make up for eating processed food by taking the stuff that I have, standard process. If you eat a high processed, high sugar food diet, I mean, the supplements are going to help, but you cannot make up for a bad diet by taking supplements. So we're going to show you that vitamins come in, they're very complex. And if you supply vitamins with synthetic fractions like a lot of supplements are, you just create more imbalances. You don't help the person. So let's look at whole food supplements versus isolated nutrients. Americans are now spending more than $17 billion a year on supplements for health and wellness. But the rates of some forms of chronic disease have not changed. The rates of others have gotten worse. Okay? Everybody would agree that raw honey is better for you than white sugar. Brown rice is better for you than white rice. So why should it be any different for vitamins? By the way, when we talk about raw honey is really interesting. I think honey is more of a therapeutic than it is a sweetener. In other words, it has a lot of antiviral and antibiotic effects. So when you you get a sore throat, for example, one of the things you could do is just make some hot tea and put some honey and lemon in it. I think, honey's got a lot of fructose in it, and I don't recommend you eat a lot of it, all the time, but it's a whole lot better than white sugar. Let's see. Well, we know that synthetic vitamins are just like refined food, a lot like that. And they're coated so hard that a lot of the synthetic vitamins go right through you. In other words, they end up, these guys that clean out these porta potties, they find out a lot of synthetic vitamins in there that have never been broken down. And they talk about that. They're not good. So, and that's one of the reasons, like when you take anything that I give you, I recommend chewing it, even though they're nasty. Okay? They just work better. I chew all my stuff. I don't like it, but I do it anyway. Okay. So think of whole food complexes as a car. So you have a lot of different parts that make up a car. So if you took different parts out of different cars and put it together and just made a car out of it, you think it'd run very well? No, it wouldn't. Okay, but that's exactly what happens when people try and make synthetic vitamins. Like in the standard processed products, all of those are from whole foods. They put whole foods together that contain specific concentrates of nutrients. And so synthetic vitamins are like trying to put a car together from different parts. And here's another example is, when people say, well, I'm taking 5 grams of vitamin C, what does that mean? What are they taking?
They're taking ascorbic acid.
Ascorbic acid.
Yeah.
But vitamin C, so that's like saying that ascorbic acid is vitamin C is like saying that your engine is your car. Well, that's just not true. It's part of your car, important part of your car, but it's not just your car. So if we look at vitamin C, it's really complex. It contains rutin, which is really important for supporting collagen and connective tissue. So for forming bone, for example. A lot of your bone is formed with vitamin C. Okay, bioflavonoid complex, K factor, which supports clotting of blood, strength of bones, organs, glands, and tissues. The J factor, vitamin C oxygenates the blood. It helps the blood carry oxygen. And it has a chemical in it called tyrosinase, which contains organic copper. Okay? So it's essential to muscle function, heart function, and thyroid function. So it's possible that if someone's thyroid is not working well, they're missing this, and that's why it's not working. And here's another thing. This organic copper is really important, and we don't need copper in high amounts. And like zinc and copper need to be balanced in the body, the zinc-copper ratio. The zinc-copper ratio can actually throw hormones off if it's off too far. And so, when you take zinc, it's not a bad idea to balance that out with maybe some whole food vitamin C complex, which contains tyrosinase. Now, you can take zinc for a while without throwing that balance off, but if you're eating a lot of foods that are high in vitamin C, then you're going to get your tyrosinase and your organic copper. So all of this is part of the vitamin C complex, as well as ascorbic acid. The ascorbic acid in vitamin C basically is an antioxidant that protects these things from oxidizing. That's really what the ascorbic acid is for. So what companies do is they take it out and they put it in large dosages, and there is some therapeutic effect to ascorbic acid on the body, but you miss a whole lot of the rest of the vitamin C complex, which is really, really important. And so, and these things, you can imagine that people that got scurvy didn't have a lot of this. So let's look at subclinical scurvy. It's a really vitamin C complex deficiency. So symptoms would include bleeding gums, loose teeth, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, all from a vitamin C complex deficiency. So that's why I like Cataplex C, whole food complex vitamin C, but it's in some of the other things too, like Drenamine. It's also in Congaplex, Imuplex. All of that has whole food vitamin C. Stretch marks, a lot of times, is a connective tissue problem, vitamin C issue. Person does not have enough vitamin C. Okay, what about potency? So people look at like standard process, and they look at like Cataplex C and they say one dose is like 5 milligrams. You go, man, that's nothing. I go down and get 5 grams of ascorbic acid. Now that is, that's a dose. But let's look at dose, the difference between dose and potency, okay? Potency is related to the number of milligrams or micrograms based on test results using isolated vitamin fractions, okay? If we look at that, so in actuality, a minute amount of a vitamin that is left intact in its whole food format is more powerful to the body and more effective than a large amount of chemical pure fraction. So whole food concentrates are low dose, high potency. Okay, so when you take a food in its whole food format, you can take less of it, have a much greater metabolic impact on the body.
So it's actually more bang for your buck.
More bang for your buck, right? Because you're getting the whole thing. So studies show that the body treats isolated and synthetic nutrients almost like foreign substances. So have you ever You ever taken a vitamin and your urine turns real yellow? Ever happen? Why does that happen? Your
It goes
body
right through your
can't
body.
use it, so it goes right through. Okay, so for example, if you eat something, let's say you eat something that's really high. You eat an organic salad with fresh greens, fresh broccoli, fresh cauliflower. Maybe you throw in some blueberries. Your pee is not going to turn fluorescent yellow from that, okay? Because you're getting nutrients in their whole form. But you show me, you chew up a Centrum or one a day, just chew it up real good and see what happens next time you pee. It's going to change the color of your urine because it just goes right through. Your body can't really use it. So let's look at whole food diets versus refined food diets. So if you look at one of these studies from Stanford, one from Europe, reveal the following things. Organic foods contain far less pesticides. They have on the average 48% lower levels of toxic and the heavy metal cadmium. Organic fruits and vegetables contain 18 to 69% more antioxidants. And studies from the U.S. Department of Agricultural data from both 1950 and 1999 for 43 different vegetables and fruits find that the decline in the amount of nutrients in these foods between those years. So what's happening is the food that's grown now is much less nutrients than it did years ago. So what about genetically modified foods? Here's a mouse that was fed genetically modified mouse chow, and look what happened to it. They grew these huge tumors. These were GMO-fed mice. Mice fed with genetically modified mouse chow with typical glyphosate residues grew these large tumors. Here's another study in Australia in which pigs were fed a diet of diverse GMO foods, found that pigs, especially male pigs, had significant stomach inflammation. The females had heavy uteri and were less fertile. Okay, so is there a fertility issue in this country right now?
Mm-hmm.
Huge fertility issue. I mean, males are producing less sperm. Couples aren't having as many kids. A lot of couples can't have kids. I mean, what's the reason for that? Well, this is probably one of the reasons, not the only reason. And it's sad that we have to worry now about what our food ate. Mm-hmm. I mean, we never used to have to do that. Ben & Jerry's ice cream was found to contain residue of glyphosate. That was a big story like a couple of years ago, because they're supposed to be the big environmental conscious company, and their ice cream had glyphosate in it. If you want to look at foods that are very high in glyphosate, non-organic grains, especially oats. Quaker oats, high in Roundup residue, okay? So if you want to eat oatmeal, which I don't recommend, I don't think that's a great food, but if you want to eat it, get organic steel-cut oats. Roundup has been related to things like birth defects, infertility, and cancer. And I think that, in California, they proclaimed that it was cancer-causing pesticide, but I don't. California's kind of crazy, and I don't really trust some of what they come up with, But I know that Roundup and glyphosate has had a lot of research by Stephanie Seneff up at MIT, and she's found it does a lot of bad things to the body.
I have a question on the organic grains. Do you have to be concerned about the glyphosate at all?
No.
Okay.
Not if it's grown organically.
Okay. Wow.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about that.
Good.
I think the part of the issue with organic foods, So it's really not an issue, but I don't think the organic foods now are probably as high in nutrition as they were like 40 years ago. So what does the scientific literature say about whole food diets? Okay. Most children start life with optimal cardiovascular health, but it declines substantially over time. That's in the journal Circulation. Children who have a horrible diet will develop worsening body mass index and cholesterol levels. Only 1% of children actually have an ideal diet score. And children fared the worst on eating fruits, vegetables, fish, and whole grains. No kidding. What do kids like to eat? Pizza, French fries, chicken McNuggets, potato chips, pop. Less than 10% of kids ate the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables. Well, why is that? I mean, you have to look at their parents and what are their parents feeding them. And sometimes parents don't know any better either, but, I know kids, I know there's a particular individual, I won't tell you who it is, but he's actually running for one of the offices today that people are voting for, and I know him really well. And he raised all of his kids on a whole food organic diet. And his kids grew up really healthy. They didn't have any health issues. And when his youngest son, who's now in the Navy, they gave him some pop once when he was 3 or 4, and gave him a little glass of pop, and he put it in his mouth and he spit it out. He couldn't stand it because they were all raised on fresh squeezed juices, fruits, vegetables, good stuff. There's evidence that lean meat, fish, vegetables, and tubers and fruit can be effective in the prevention and treatment of common Western diseases. This is the American Journal of Human Biology, March, April 2012. Paleolithic humans' principal foods included ripe fruits and berries, shoots, flowers, buds, young leaves. And, they basically had to hunt their food, And you look at Africa, anybody in here ever watch videos of these primitive African tribes where these people go in and they spend like 3 weeks with them? What do you notice about them? Anybody? There's a couple of things that I noticed. Number one is they're all healthy. Yeah, they're all lean and healthy. But here's another thing that I noticed. These hunter-gatherer tribes, they all seem to be pretty happy. Mm-hmm. They don't have anything. They live in these huts. They don't have any possessions. They make all their hunting bows and arrows. But they just seem really happy. And I'm going, they don't have anything that we have.
Well, and they have more energy, too.
Yeah. They go out and they have, and one of them asked the tribal leader, what's the most important thing in your life? The guy didn't even hesitate. He said, meat. This finding meat is the most important thing to them. So if you look at these foods here, they only provide about 1/4 of the calorie intake from the average European and American. Today we get most of our energy from grains, dairy products, refined fat, sugar, and legumes. So at our house, we eat a lot of this, but we don't eat perfectly. I'll tell you that. We don't have a perfect diet, but we have a pretty darn good diet. I still eat birthday cake on occasion and some other things, but I think if like 80% of your food, 85 is good, you can kind of fudge on the other 15%, and your body will let you know if you eat something that's not good for it. The Mediterranean diet is health protective. Here's another reference that talks about a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and nuts, low in animal fats, dairy, and sweets can reduce risk of stroke by up to 18%. Mediterranean diet was associated with greater telomere length, which means it's a biomarker for aging. The Mediterranean diet reduces cognitive decline, in the journal Neurology. So what is a Mediterranean diet? Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, olive oil, coconut oil, legumes, fish, poultry, and lamb. There's this island in the Mediterranean, I can't remember what it was, but the average age that people died was in the 90s. And they were still sexually active in their 90s. I mean, I've had men come into my office in their 30s who are having problems with that. I mean, that's ridiculous. And so, what do they eat on this island? They eat this stuff, you know, that's what they eat. A lot of olives and things, all kinds of this. They don't eat much. And another thing on that island is that there weren't a lot of cars, and everybody knew each other, so there's a lot of relationships, a lot of, you know, close family relationships on the island. I mean, of course, everybody knows each other. That can be a bad thing at times too. But anyway, so how healthy is an avocado? So look at all the vitamins an avocado has: C, E, K, B6, riboflavin, niacin, folate, pantothenic acid, magnesium, potassium, beta-carotene, lutein, omega-3s, and they're all in whole food complexes. So avocados they're really good for you. We eat avocados at our house. We make salad dressing out of avocados and mangoes. And my wife eats avocados all the time. I don't eat as many as she does. So they're just full of things that help your blood sugar and help your body. So let's look at some little understood effects of vitamin deficiencies. So if you have somebody that you know that's suffering from neuropathy, that's a vitamin E deficiency. So something like Cataplex E2 or Cataplex E, with some of the supplements we have. Alpha lipoic acid and St. John's wort can also help neuropathy. So you could take literally all three of these for neuropathy. Copper, somebody that has low body temperature, even when on thyroid medication, a lot of times it's a copper deficiency. Now that doesn't mean you take loads of copper, because you don't need very much, but you know, some very small amounts might be okay. Unexplainable PMS, where everything else looks good, it's a manganese deficiency. Okay? Worsening eye health. Eyes just keep getting worse and worse over time. Chromium. Okay? Now, can other things cause that? Sure. Yeah, like sugar. Like too much sugar in the diet. Iron, low iron can produce anxiety, heavy menstrual flow, swollen tongue. Now, how about learning disabilities and blurred vision? That's a choline deficiency. Now, the product that we have that has a lot of choline in it is soybean lecithin, has choline in it. Plus, we have a product that has choline, called choline. Inositol, hair loss, obsessive compulsive disorder, and poor sleep from an inositol deficiency. Vitamin B, poor balance, and dizziness. Now, another thing that can contribute to hair loss, liver dysfunction. Liver dysfunction can contribute substantially to hair loss. So, you could take inositol and liver together, and I have some other things for hair loss too. So these are things that most people don't even know about.
On the inositol, what products have that?
We have a product called inositol.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's a whole food inositol complex. Yeah.
Okay.
So these are things that you could try. Like our chromium is Cataplex GTF, which is a whole food nutritional yeast product, very high in chromium. And so a lot of the products that we have contain these, and copper is Cataplex C has copper, and we also have some other things that have copper in them. So you can take these in a whole food format, if you have these issues, and see what happens. and you won't hurt yourself because you're just taking food. Okay, that's all you're doing. And so that's why I try and give the vast majority of my nutritional products in a whole food complex. Now, if you look at alpha lipoic acid, one of the foods that has a lot of that in it is Brussels sprouts. So it's interesting. Brussels sprouts is almost becoming like there's just a resurgence. You know, you can get it at restaurants. You know, caramelized Brussels sprouts are actually pretty good. They're very high in alpha lipoic acid, and alpha lipoic acid has sulfur in it, which is really important for health in the body, as does like broccoli and cauliflower and kale and cabbage. So so major keys to health: a whole food diet, whole food supplements, chiropractic care to provide a high functioning nervous system. And, you know, to help people with this, we're doing our patient appreciation week next week, where we're doing complimentary subluxation checks just to see if people can be helped. We can help. Good quality sleep, regular exercise, our alkaline water, and then healthy and nurturing relationships. I don't think I left anything out there. Good. Any questions? Okay. So if you want a set of notes, I can email you the slides. I'd be happy to do that. I forgot to print them out today, but we can get you a set. Carmen will get you a set of notes, and you can go over this on your own. Good. So, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Good. Thanks for coming tonight.